Hey everybody, it's Ben and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the first 13 issues of the DC weekly series Batman and Robin Eternal. Story focuses on not only the immediate Bat family but also the extended Bat family of characters, so not only Batman himself but also Dick Grayson aka Agent 37, who is currently a super spy and an agent of Spiral. We have Jason Todd aka Red Hood, who is a gun-toting lethal force using vigilante. And we also have Tim Drake aka Red Robin, who's a bit of a tech geek and a tech genius. And we also have Harper Row aka Bluebird, who is also a bit of a tech geek and a tech genius as well within her own right. So the story begins with Dick lamenting over the fact that flying through the air of Gotham City alongside Batman during his time as Robin was one of his favourite pastimes, due to the fact that he could feel the wind whipping in his hair and also feeling his cape whip behind him as he was travelling alongside his partner to teach the evil dissidents of Gotham not to get involved in crime, and that crime does not pay. Sorry, I had to get a little bit of a Shadow reference in there then. So the story starts out with a team-up between Dick, Jason and Tim, who chase down and apprehend a futuristic weapons designer, and this little sequence actually showcases not only their working methods but also their bond of brotherhood, in spite of the fact that things are a little bit awkward due to the fact that in the pages of Grayson issue 12, Dick actually came back to Gotham and actually revealed to the Bat family at large that he was in fact still alive after supposedly dying, quote-unquote, at the hands of Lex Luthor within the pages of Forever Evil. And we then discover that this was actually a ploy by Batman to make the world at large believe that Nightwing was dead, so Dick Grayson could then go undercover and become a super spy agent for Spiral and unravel the organization of Spiral from within. We then, in the very first issue, we get a really cool moment for the character of Harper, whereby she actually disables the robotic mechanized batsuit which Jim Gordon, the current Batman, is actually parading around in, and she even warns him not to call somebody who just disabled his mech suit Kiddo. So that was a really cool moment for her to shine, and also to show her prowess in terms of she knows her way around technology and if need be how to disable said technology. We also then have Dick actually making an appearance at the grand reopening of the Gotham State University Tower of Enlightenment, and while at the party he's actually attacked by gun-wielding children who are working for someone that they call Mother. I have to say that the action scenes are really well done, and the first 13 issue story, or 13 issues of this weekly series, has a constant state of forward momentum going from each issue to issue, and there's also a state of not only mystery but a state of emergency in the respect that the Bat family at large is trying to figure out who this Mother is, what her plans are, how to unravel said plans, and how to eventually take Mother down. So fortunately for Dick, he manages to get away from the gun-toting children, only to be kicked off his motorcycle by Cassandra Cain, who makes her New 52 debut within the pages of this weekly series. So there's a brief fight scene between Cass and Dick where she easily holds her own against him, but not before handing Dick a flash drive which contains not only a list of Mother's targets but also a message from Batman. So Dick goes back to the Batcave and he plays this message from Batman, and he mentions the fact that he and this supposed Mother figure have met years earlier, and he's sorry for what he's placed on Dick's shoulders, and he is responsible for the situation which Dick is actually going through at the moment with Mother, and he actually asks for Dick's forgiveness towards the end. So we're then introduced to the character of Orphan, who is an agent of Mother and one of her most devoted followers, who proceeds to attack Harper in her Narrows apartment, and she is then saved by Cassandra, who manages to best the Orphan in combat. And also Harper gets another moment to shine, whereby she actually blasts Orphan with an electronic pulse gun which she uses as part of her arsenal as her alter ego as Bluebird. So we then find out that Mother actually has ties to Jonathan Crane aka the Scarecrow, who we find out that Dick and Bruce as Batman and Robin went up against years earlier, and unfortunately for them both, they were both gassed with Crane's fear-inducing toxin, and for Dick, his worst nightmare plays out before his eyes, which is him believing that he is both unworthy and not good enough to be Batman's sidekick and partner as Robin. So we then have Bruce and Dick talking about this, and Dick sort of reassures him and says, "You are good enough, you are my partner, you are my sidekick, and you are Robin." Of course, we find out later that not all is supposedly as it appears to be. So we then have Cassandra actually tracking down Red Hood and kicks his seemingly overconfident ass, while also, while they get back to the Batcave, Cass is the reason that they all get together, so to speak, in order to bring down Mother. And we find out, just like her pre-New 52 version of her character, Cassandra actually doesn't talk, and Harper actually reveals that she has the mind of a child due to the fact that she had a pretty horrific and traumatic upbringing, and only actually manages to communicate through body language. So there's a really quite heartfelt and touching moment where, after being tempted with candy from Red Robin, Cass actually stands up and reaches out and touches the arm, face and shoulder of Jason, Tim and Dick respectively, which shows that she feels both a kinship and a connection and a friendship between the three of them, in spite of the fact that, as I've said, she can't talk. So we then have Dick actually arriving at a party which is being thrown for Bruce on Bruce Wayne's behalf, to discover that he's actually the target of an assassination attempt, again by more of Mother's children, quote unquote. Of course, currently Bruce actually doesn't remember being Batman or remember his past crime-fighting exploits with neither Dick nor Jason, or even Damian, his two adopted sons and his blood son, respectively, due to the fact that there was an accident with a substance called Dunesium, which was involved in the final confrontation, quote-unquote, between the Joker and Batman at the end of the Endgame arc in Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on Batman, which apparently seemingly erased Bruce's memories of ever being the Batman, and also healed the part of his brain which held on to the traumatic trauma that Bruce used as the fuel, so to speak, to become the Dark Knight or the Caped Crusader or the Night Avenger, whichever nickname you wish to give the Batman. So we then have the cavalry arriving in the form of the We Are Robin gang and also Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl. There's again more great action scenes of them all fending off Bruce's would-be attackers. We then have Dick paying a visit to Tim Drake's parents, who we discover within the New 52 are in witness protection, and seemingly one of Mother's agents arrives in the form of Poppy, who was a fellow Spyro agent and an acquaintance of Dick's before seemingly attacking him. So we then have again more great action and fight scenes between Poppy and Dick, and we then have Tim arriving and reveals that it was him who placed his parents in protective custody, it was him who designed their safe house, it was him that fabricated their new identities in order to protect them from the dangers of being involved within the vigilante business and in order to protect his loved ones. And of course he is none too pleased that his big brother lied to him about the fact that what he was really up to, which was actually checking to make sure that Tim hadn't been compromised by Mother, and Tim proceeds to then seemingly punch Dick in the jaw. So we then have Dick explaining his actions to Tim, saying, look, I had to check you were alright, I didn't want to believe you were compromised, but I had to make sure. And there's a really great moment where Tim even admits to Dick, look, I would totally expect Batman to lie to me and pull such a stunt, but I wouldn't expect it from you of all people. So there's a really great moment of Tim genuinely being hurt over the fact that his big brother took it upon himself to not only lie to him, but also to seemingly check up on him and then drag his parents back into this unwanted lifestyle which he tried to distance his parents from in the first place. So we then have another pretty awesome moment again for the character of Cassandra, who actually saves Harper's life from Orphan and actually ends the ensuing fight scene by slicing off his hand, which again not only shows her fighting prowess but also shows that she will go to any lengths to protect her friend. And there's actually a great moment of Harper actually having to sort of turn the tables around and actually comfort Cassie because she cries at the fact that she nearly lost one of her friends to a seemingly very, very bad man, which we find out later that Orphan actually has very close personal ties to Cassandra, but I won't get into that. I'll let you guys read this and find out for yourselves. We also see in flashbacks that the relationship between Bruce and Dick changes when Robin actually intercepts a plane which he believes Scarecrow to be escaping in, only to discover that the plane is actually rigged with a bomb which blows up, and Dick nearly gets killed in the ensuing explosion, which then leaves Dick to blame himself for Scarecrow getting away. And it really sort of irks Batman over the fact that Robin openly defied his direct orders to hang back and not proceed to attempt to jump on the plane, but Dick went and did it anyway. So we then start to see sort of the cracks develop between Dick and Bruce, or Batman and Robin, in terms of their partnership. And we also see through flashbacks that while delaying an appearance at a party that he threw years back, Bruce actually meets a individual by the name of Maxwell, who it turns out is a real estate developer, who reveals to Dick that his lovely, beautiful bride is actually a sort of a tailored, designed human being and a sale product of Mother's, who Maxwell actually bought for a very large sum of money after she was shaped to suit his own specific specifications on the part of Mother and her agents. So then, unfortunately for Maxwell, he recognizes an agent of Mother's who was present at the party, and he tries to dismiss the whole thing as a joke, but of course Batman's way too clever to fall for that, so he does some checking and then proceeds to discover that the guy and his wife are actually dead within their penthouse, and he realizes that Mother is actually covering her tracks and eliminating anyone who can be tied to her directly by the Dark Knight. And we then have Dick, Harper and Cass actually going to Prague to actually track down Mother in the while in the Prague-based Batcave. Dick even tells Harper and Cass they are going to go undercover in the Prague Opera House, and she then proceeds to have a loan of one of Dix's tuxedos, and even sort of not digs the knife in, but she sort of makes a quip at him and says that your tuxedo looks so much better on me than it does you. So there's some really great scenes of the Opera House sequence, and it's framed really well, and it's actually really quite touching over the fact that Cassie actually really enjoys the opera, because it's all movement and body language and dancing, which Harper sort of likens to being poetry for Cassie. So we then have Dick and Mother actually meeting for the first time, and she's actually verbally torturing Dick over teasing little details out of her and Bruce's meeting from years ago, and the reasons as to why. And again, there's more great action scenes of Harper and Cassie holding their own against Mother's would-be assassins within the Prague Opera House. And while this is going on, we actually have Red Robin and Red Hood travelling to Santa Prisca to chase down leads, and we have an appearance by Bane, who wants to take his island back from the defilers who have besmirched and defiled his home island and his home, essentially. And we also find out that the island is now home to a particular order, and we also find out that the order is also playing host to one of Mother's pet projects, so to speak. But again, I'm not going to spoil anything as to who the order is or who the pet project is. You'll just have to read it for yourselves and find out. So we then have Dick and Harper travelling to the home of Orphan, who, as I mentioned, is one of Mother's most devoted followers, in the attempts to find some answers on how to stop her. Unfortunately, they meet Mother's sculptor, and in the ensuing conversations and confrontation, they both learn a lot more than they bargained for. Harper is actually treated to Cassandra's backstory in terms of how she came to be the way she is, and also Dick learns exactly why supposedly Bruce sought Mother's services all those years ago, and the reasonings actually really rock Dick to his core. But I'll get more into that towards the end. We then have Cass returning to the nursery, quote unquote, which is where she was raised and molded to become the ultimate weapon by actually borrowing some of Batman's tech. I have to say that the colouring and the framing of the artwork and the work of the colorist is really, really well done here, and is actually one of my favourite sort of marriages of both artwork and colour in this particular first 13 issue arc of the weekly series. Once again, we're treated to more of Cassie's backstory in terms of how she's brought up, and there's also a really touching moment of Cass actually seeing two of her fellow children hug for the first time, and upon hearing what a hug actually signifies, she proceeds to then hug Mother's sculptor, and her eyes fill with tears because this is the first sort of bonding moment that she's actually experienced throughout her entire life. And there's also a really touching moment where Batman actually leaves Cass with the instructions to find Dick should anything happen to him, while he's actually off searching for Mother and attempting to bring her down. And he even tells her that she's more than the weapon that she was created to be, and she isn't a monster, and the fact that she's a hero in his eyes because of the fact that she chose to be a hero, and it's the path that she chose for herself rather than the path that she was destined to go on should she have been molded into the weapon and into the monster that she was created to be, both by, well, not both by Mother and Orphan, but solely by Orphan, who we find out who Orphan actually is in relation to Cassie. But again, just because I'm not going to spoil it, because I know this series hasn't been out very long, and I know a lot of you may be catching up, maybe you've caught up already, but for those of you who are perhaps still catching up or you haven't had time to read it yet, I won't spoil anything. Again, there's another really great fight scene between Oracle and Cass, and we get the reveal of who he is, and they go toe to toe, and there's actually a really cool moment of Cass actually painting a bat symbol over her face in the blood of Orphan's victims, which have been pretty much stockpiled and left in a dump at the bottom of the nursery, which was again another really sort of blood-curdling and chilling moment for the character of Cassandra. We then have the cavalry arriving in the form of Dick and Harper, who actually shock Orphan with 12,000 volts of electricity, and we then have Cassie instantly hugging Harper, being over the joy to the fact that she's seeing her friend again, that she's alive, that she's okay. And there's also a surprise reveal at the end, and a good cliffhanger for the 13th and final issue of this first arc. I have to say, the co-writing by Scott Snyder, James Tynion IV, Tim Seeley and friends is really well done. The artwork and the colouring by the revolving team of different artists and colourists, or colourists respectively, is also really well done. It's not jarring, it's actually really consistent in its portrayal of the characters, the story, and the action scenes as well. So there's not a jarring difference between art styles, it's all very, very consistent, which you wouldn't really expect because there's a few different artists on the series, and as the saying goes, too many cooks spoil the broth, so to speak, but I'm happy to report this actually isn't the case. I really enjoyed the focus on the extended Bat family of characters, as well as fleshing out new relationships between the newer characters who have been included, as well as developing the relationships between the already established family of Bat characters, particularly between Dick, Tim and Jason. Not just the brotherly bond, but also how secrets between family members and ulterior motives are not good for family and not good for a family unit, particularly when the family unit is involved in the business of crime fighting. So if you're interested in checking out Batman Eternal, I would recommend it. I think it's a really good read, in my opinion. As a weekly series goes, I'm really enjoying it so far, but time will tell if it starts out good and then veers off and does a nosedive like Batman Eternal did towards the end, or perhaps because it's a shorter series. I believe it's half the length of Batman Eternal. I think it's 26 issues, so hopefully the storyline will be more streamlined, more concise and more consistent, and not as sort of not so much dragged out, but sort of veering off into different sort of subplots and sort of in between stories and sort of diverging paths along the main storyline. So we'll see if the series does remain consistent, because it is of a much shorter length than Batman Eternal. Thank you everybody for watching. My apologies for this video being slightly longer than usual, but because it's a weekly series, I wanted to do each issue its own justice and to give you guys an overview of my thoughts. So as always, thank you everybody for watching. By all means, please feel free to leave a comment below, rate the video up or down, and if you're new and you'd like to see more videos in the foreseeable future from me, by all means please feel free to subscribe. And until next time, this is Gambit896 signing off, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.